Okay, first we're going to stand for the pledge and then the prayer, and then we'll get the meeting started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you can remain standing, please. Heavenly Father, I'd like to thank you for a wonderful evening and everybody who's come out tonight. I pray that there's a safe travel back home with this inclement weather. I want to thank everybody for their support and their patriotism to come out and support the ideals in which this country was founded. I pray that we are respectful to one another and we speak with honesty and no malice towards anybody. I'd like to pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, first I'll go over a few remarks that I have here, if I get myself back in order. In September, we held our members-only meeting. It was also a voters' meeting. President, secretary, and director position were up for a vote, as well as some other vacancies we had on the board. I'd like to introduce at this time the new board. I'm Ed Mundorf. I'm the president, again, for 2 years. Our secretary is Nancy Snoke. She's over there. Our treasurer is Carol Tignall. Our director, we have 3 directors. The first one is Shelva Eller. She's also the committee chair of Education and Schools. Randy Covington, he's also in charge of, he's the committee chair for Communications and Media. Todd Kiefer, Todd's over there. He's the chair of Social Media. And Dale Woolridge, he's in charge of our membership. And George Figdor is in charge of merchandise. Is he here tonight? Okay, I guess not. This board has basically jumped in and took control and charge, and it's been really kind of hectic up until that point. We had a small board trying to do a lot of things. And this group has done an extraordinary amount of work to get back into shape. I'd like to thank all of them for joining the team. I just really appreciate all their help. Next year, we're going to be electing vice president, treasurer, and 2 director positions. So if you're interested, and it requires that you are an active member if you want to run or vote. Recently, all of the original founders have slowly gone off the board and not as active as they used to be because, for one thing, they're basically drained. 4 or 5 years of doing this over and over, they just kind of had to step back and get a breather. Bill Bishop was the last. He was our vice president, and he stepped down to pretty much focus more time onto his business. Really appreciate all the work that he's done. Along with the committees that we currently have, we could really use help to start other committees. We have things that we would like to do is like outreach, fundraising, research, events like scheduling bus trips. We used to do that a lot. We don't have anybody that's really doing it at this point. And basically finding speakers for our meetings, hot topic items. Any ideas are welcome. We're a group for you and for all of us to try and get things back to a conservative standpoint. So if you want to help out on any of the chairs that are currently here, please speak to them. If you want to start a committee, let me know or let them know, and we'll see what we can do to get that up and running. Recently, I've been reminded that the perception of the group has at times been that we're hostile or combative with the elected officials. Now, I do agree in the past, some of our past leaders have expressed a certain point of view, and it came across a certain way. But the content of the message was always accurate. The problem was the way we presented our message. So to try and be respectful to them, these politicians, they're not always ready for us to say that you're doing something wrong. They don't really appreciate that. But if they're going to be that way and they can't handle constructive criticism, then in my point of view is how are they going to handle going up against people from Philadelphia or even the governor's office when they say, we need you to do this? So If they can't handle our criticism, then they're just going to kowtow to whatever they ask them to do up there. So they need to listen to us first. And basically, the problem is they're not truly representing us. They're representing their own point of view. We want limited government. They want a job for the rest of their lives. They want a pension. So they're not really interested in doing what we want them to do. Another problem is that we did not do our job. You know, this group came about because the politicians did what they wanted and we let them go. Finally, we woke up and it's like, now we're finally doing something, but we can do more. We need to pay attention to them and see what they're doing and fire them when it's necessary. And that's done at the primary and the general. Not just the general. We need to figure out who we want to get to the general. We got to get to the primaries. We've allowed the parties to assume a role that we should be taking care of. So they're telling us what we're supposed to do and who we're supposed to vote for. We need to get involved and tell them who we want. And this group would not be here if it weren't for them. I mean, really, why are we here? Because we're tired of what they're doing. So it's their own fault that we're actually in business, if you will. And while we need to be respectful to them, we also need to call our officials out when necessary. But our image must always be respectful but honest. Okay. Now on to other things. How many here tonight have been here with the group, say, since 09, 010, or 2010? Great. How about since 2011, 2012, 13? And let's say in the last few months. Okay. For those that have been coming for some time, I'd ask you this question. What have you done that would allow the people that are currently here or just coming here to realize that we've done something over the years or over the months? And I'm not trying to criticize or point to anybody in particular, but do you feel you made a difference? And how have you made a difference? How have you made an impact on things? I want to kind of get back to that later on this evening. What if we looked at the impact of our politicians and not just talking about President Obama, and I'll bash him a little bit, of course we have to do that, and granting amnesty to millions who will not get benefits, including food stamps, earned income credits, driver's license, and yes, voting rights. That will come. But how about those in Congress who have not stopped the madness over the last 6 years? Even our state representatives and senators who have not passed pension reform, touched on prevailing wages, and who have not eliminated property taxes. This is stuff that needs to be done. We have some senators and some representatives who are up there trying hard, but there's others, even in our party, well, a conservative party, supposedly, are not doing their job. Let's look at Representative Seth Grove. House Bill 1189. It's called the Optional Property Tax Elimination Act. And it gives the school districts the choice to eliminate property tax. Well, where's their incentive to do that? They're given the option to move things here, move things there. Well, if nobody's yelling at them, why would they do that? They won't eliminate it. So we can either wait for our politicians to pass 76. Do I think it's going to go through? I'm leaning on the side of not. I'm cautiously optimistic that they might get it through, but there's other things we can do to actually affect property taxes. And that's more of the school board stuff. So what can we do? We need to not give up. We need to stop complaining. But why do we lack commitment to get involved? I have a couple thoughts on that. And one of them I'm going to hit on Scripture. I don't normally do that, but the other Sunday, my pastor really hit something that kind of drove home a thought with me. Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So my point is, when you accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, He forgives all of your sins, past, present, and future. So regardless, I believe we may not feel worthy to get involved to run for office or to get involved. Well, you know, my past, I don't want to do anything because I'm probably not worthy. We're all worthy. This thinking keeps us from doing good. It makes us compare ourselves to others. We believe we are not good enough to get involved. We are. Every day we try harder. So we may also feel, we don't know enough. Well, neither did they. Look at Todd Platts. He didn't have any experience as a judge, and he got elected. So if he can do that, you can run for anything. So that's my talking points. All right, so the rest of the evening, what we have here is a lot of stuff geared towards education in schools. We're going to first have a school board workshop with Carol Tignall. We're going to move to Common Core with Shelva Eller, Fran Fulton, and Randy Covington. And then we're going to get an update from, it was going to be Scott Wagner, but he overbooked himself and didn't realize that. But the beautiful part is we have Senator Mike Fulmer here, and he's going to step in. So he'll be just as good to update us on the information. After all that, we have a breakout session. One of the big things that I would love people to do is to get involved. That's what my whole spiel was about, get involved. We have a breakout room over there where we used to meet. We have 16 tables. Each table represents a school district. We have information of what you need to do. We have papers to sign up. We have information talking about leaders, members. We have maps, all the information you need to get up and running and get started. I even have it all documented of what nights the school boards meet in every school district. So there's no reason to not get involved. The information's there and ready to go. So hopefully after the evening, everybody can stay and get involved. Even if you come over for 5 minutes, write your name down, let people know you're interested. We'll contact you. We'll keep you up to date. So I'm sure I'm forgetting some stuff to do, some stuff to talk about. Somebody brought notepads tonight, and I cannot remember who that was. Aha, Rick Smith, sorry. My mind is gone, I'll tell you what. He has some, what's that? Keller, sorry. He has some notepads over there. Which table did you put them on? Back there in the back. If you want to take notes, he has the pads back there. I should have said that up front. But if you want to go ahead while we get set up and get ready for Carol, you can go ahead and grab a notepad. So with no further ado, Carol. Oh, he will be? Oh, cool. All right. No, I did not.
Okay. You ready to roll? Okay. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay. We got a lot of ground to cover, so I'll ask you to hold your questions and answer to the end of the presentation because we're not sure how much time it's going to take to do it and whether we'll have any time to do it before the next presentation. First slide after that. I got to wondering, why people won't get involved, right? First thing I thought about is I get a property tax bill from the school district every year, and in my case, it's a lot of money, so it should get your attention. Now, you would think that that would at least get people stirred up and go to a few board meetings, but it really doesn't. So it's a matter of, what does it matter? Well, it's your country, your government, your money, you understand your money, your children and your grandchildren, so it's time to get involved. There's a lot of things going on with the school system, with public education, all over the place. So things are changing and people don't know what's going on and they're not informed because nobody's really telling them what's going on. Next slide. As far as Pennsylvania's school governance is concerned, the state mandates a thorough and efficient system of education. That's pretty broad, but that's what they're mandated to do. And the state grants the authority to run the school districts to the school districts themselves. They're an actual school taxing authority. The district can approve annual budgets without voter referendum unless the spending index exceeds the PA state-determined percentages. And you'll know since that law passed, very few districts have asked for that extension or waivers, and they can be granted waivers. But it's really, since they passed a law to limit that amount, has kept them pretty calm. Okay, next. The school board is a legislative body of citizen directors elected locally by their fellow citizens who serve as agents of the state legislature. They're government people. Each school board consists of 9 members who serve 4-year terms, and they serve without pay. The school directors are state officials, co-partners with the legislature, designated by the school law to administer the school system in each district. Every district is set up like that. The public education is fundamentally a state responsibility, but a system of free education is mandated under the state constitution, which says the General Assembly shall provide for maintenance and support of the thorough and efficient system of education. Okay. The Constitution of Pennsylvania actually recognizes public schools as a legislative function, and it so states that is described as a unit of local government. And the PA education enjoys special status under that state constitution. It is the only public service so mandated by the Constitution. To carry out the Constitution, the General Assembly created school districts and school boards in 1834. It conferred broad legal powers to the local boards, making them autonomous in many of their operations. The board is a political subdivision of the state for the purpose of and convenience of administrating the schools. And the school board's authority is applied to collective decisions of the entire board. All board decisions should be made in public session. The school boards have basically 3 functions: planning, setting policy, and evaluating results. As far as planning is concerned, the boards are required to engage in strategic planning by regulation of the State Board of Education. Appropriate reports of results of such planning must be filed with the Department of Education, and it's a good volume of forms that they have to fill out. The central responsibility of the board, both in theory and in law, is the policy formation board. The policy means actions of the board are set within the goals and objectives of the school and parameters for action. In evaluating the results, the board must evaluate the results of planning. The evaluation completes the loop and leads to more planning. That cycle continues. As a group, the board is not an administrative body, neither should it be a rubber stamp for the professional educators. The selection of competent administrators who understand their role is to carry out the public policies established by the board is one of the board's most important functions. The board must evaluate the results of planning. Funds flow from federal, state, and local sources as far as the financing is concerned. Pennsylvania grants direct the taxing authority to the school districts. They can set your school property tax and do every year. They get earned income tax and personal income tax taxing authority and other what they call Act 511 taxes. The school districts can approve annual budgets without voter referendum. That's a sore point with me because the public does not see it until it's done, really. It can only go to public referendum if the increase exceeds the Pennsylvania determined percentages of Act 1. if anybody understands that, if they exceed that limit, it has to go to public referendum. Well, they haven't had any public referendum since that's happened, I don't think. And then Pennsylvania, the state government may grant an exception to the index if requested, and generally they do. So I don't know of any voter referendum that's occurred yet. Okay, in general, there are 500 school districts. That sounds like a lot. It used to be 2,500 until they changed it. It boggles the mind, but there are 500 school districts in 67 counties across the state. And there are 16 school districts within York County. Each school district has a school board, and each school board has 9 elected school board directors. That's probably hard to see, but it just gives you a sort of an overview of what the state looks like and the counties. And the school districts within the counties are the next. In the next slide, you'll see York County. Now, York County has 16 school districts within it. So that's where they're laid out in different respects to their residents. Each is supposedly the same number of residents in it. I don't know whether that's true or not. But you'll see, I think, yeah, it was just to separate them so you could see that there were different districts. But there's 16 of them. And I'm trying to think. Some of you are familiar with York Suburban. Dallastown is the yellow one. It covers a lot of area. Just right down here in the center. But that just gives you an idea of what's in York County. And every county is the same way. Okay. When I'm talking about how the school district operates, I'm talking from the standpoint of when I served on Dallastown School Board. Most of them are set up in the same way, but some are not. The school district in Dallastown is divided into 3 regions, all right? And each region elects 3 school directors, and each director serves for a 4-year term. Now, every school district that I know of in York County is set up that way, but some districts, I understand, are set up what they call at-large. So people run for school board at large. In other words, they're running in the whole school district. I don't think any of them do that in this area, but there may be. Huh? Anybody know of any?
Central.
Okay, Central has it. That's pretty difficult to do if you have to cover a whole district by yourself. That's why I think they break it down into regions, especially in Dallastown. It covers such a huge area that you can only probably cover a district yourself. The municipal elections are held every 2 years, and 5 directors are elected in one election, and 4 directors are elected in the subsequent 2-year election. Next year is one of the municipal elections, which that's when you're going to have school boards elected next year. Okay, that you probably can't see this, but that's the way the Dallastown school district regions are laid out. You can't see the detail, but the big one there in the yellow area is called Region 3. And I think Region 1 is blue, which is York Township. And then Region 2 is the other red area. So where Dallastown is the largest area within that. And the Region 1 area there covers Springfield Township, Dallastown Borough, Loganville Borough, and I don't remember the other one. See if I can remember it. And Jacobus, I'm sorry. Should remember that. Those are where the 3 regions are. Basically, York Township is in one. Region 2 is part of York Township and Yo Borough. So that'll give you an idea of how it's mapped out. Okay. Now, for school director, qualifications. You have to be a citizen of good moral character and live in Pennsylvania. You have to be 18 years of age. You have to be a resident of the school district at least 1 year prior to the election or appointment to the school board, and not be a holder of any office or position of profit under any government jurisdiction in the school district. And you cannot be employed or paid by the district nor engage in business transactions within the district. And you do have to file a financial interest statement and take an oath of office prior to entering office. I just wanted to make a quick point on taking an oath. I at times wonder how many people, when they swear to their oath, ever read the Constitution of the United States or the Pennsylvania Constitution. If we gave them a test, they probably wouldn't pass it. I'm just guessing. Okay, so if you're a school director, you have to attend board of directors meetings. They're generally once a month. Some of them have them twice a month, but they usually have them at least once a month. Your job is to represent all stakeholders of the district. All right, that's everyone who lives in the district. And you have to make sure the district is being managed properly. You don't, as a school director, you don't manage the district, but your job is to make sure that it is managed properly, and that's through the superintendent and the staff of the district. And then you adopt policy and procedure for the operation of the school district. So if they want to do something, they have to bring a policy and procedure to the board, and that's where the authority comes for what they do. They will adopt courses of study, establish the length of the school term, adopt textbooks, elect superintendents, and hire necessary employees. They can prescribe and adopt and enforce reasonable rules and regulations regarding school activities, publications, and organizations, and provide special education for children with mental and physical disabilities. They also can provide food or milk for unnourished or poor children, create and increase debt within certain limitations, and authorize attendance at the school board or the superintendent or other employees at educational meetings and pay necessary expenses. Things they should not do. They should not demand, request, or accept in any way a gift from a teacher or administrator. That may make a lot of sense, but sometimes people forget what they're supposed to do. They shall not require religious or political tests of officers or employees. They should not engage in illegal discrimination on the basis of race, creed, or color. They shall not engage in political activities on school property on school time. That's an issue that I'm very familiar with, and I can tell you it does happen at times, but they're not supposed to. Where do school board conflicts occur from? Generally, a lot of the school boards are made up of directors that have parents, or they're parents of children that attend the school district. Some board members have spouses or relatives that work for the school district. Some board members have relatives who do business with the district in providing products and services to the school district. An employee, they may be an employee of another school district, an employee of government, or there are other conflicts of interest. Those people, when they sit on the board, are supposed to be impartial, but I can tell you they're not, especially the ones with children or spouses that work for the school district. There are going to come times when they're voting on issues that are going to affect their kids and their relatives and what they're doing, right? Some of them may excuse or recuse themselves from voting. Others may not. But keep your eye on how they vote for things and who they might be representing. Okay, now we'll talk about some of the problems. We'd probably be here all night talking about them, but let's start with the fact that the district must accept all children who reside in the school district regardless of citizenship. If they live in the school district, you have to take them and you have to provide the education. That means, like with this influx of illegal immigrants, there'll be a lot of kids that'll be going to the public schools within the school districts that are not citizens, but they have to provide education for those kids, right? So I don't know how it's going to impact things if this continues the way it's going, but I think we're going to run out of money before we solve the problem. I'm not sure. The school district must provide English as a second language. So if they don't speak English, they have to provide courses and teachers to teach them how to speak English. The districts must provide transportation to all school students. Now here's the one that almost floored me, but the passing grade for students in public education is 60%. I thought it was 70%. It's now 60%. It doesn't seem that would be a very difficult goal to manage, but it is. Okay, and those are some of the reasons why we start with the problems that we have. But another problem is failing students are promoted unless parents request that they be held back in that grade. I didn't know that when I first got on the board. I thought, nah, I'm sure that's not true, but it is true. If the student fails that grade and the parents refuse to ask them to hold them back, they automatically go to the next grade. Well, as you can imagine, over a period of years, you've got a lot of kids coming out of school that aren't doing too well. While student achievement should be the priority, extracurricular activities and diversity, I believe, get more attention than student achievement. Kindergarten and pre-kindergarten are not mandated, and student testing does not occur until the third grade. So keep that in mind. You're paying for pre-K, you're paying for kindergarten, but none of those students are going to be tested until the third grade. I think I've seen some studies that say by the third grade, it doesn't matter whether they in fact went to pre-kindergarten or didn't. They're tested and the results are coming out about the same. But we're now, I believe I've been looking at some things from the state that indicate that we're talking about early childhood education, which I think is pre-K, I'm not sure, or pre-K. So each one of those things are adding cost and problems for the district. Now my favorite subject, the teacher contracts. Teacher salaries and benefits for most school districts represent 70 to 80% of the entire school budget district. That's a big chunk. That's salaries and benefits. In Dallastown, the average teacher salary is $84,000 plus. That's for 1 year. Then you have to add the benefits on top of that, pension, health benefits, and other things. The contracts are approved without voter referendum or public comment. Usually when they come to the board, it'll appear on the agenda that night, be voted on, and then you can look at it afterwards. But you'll never get a chance to see it before it actually happens, and you won't get a chance to make any public comment. Union dues are collected by the school district at taxpayer expense. This is a favorite of Senator Scott Wagner. That's absolutely true. About 20% of that is distributed to the local school district union. They're called associations. And about 80% is distributed to the state, which is Pennsylvania State Employees Association, or Education Association. And then a portion of that is distributed to the National Education Association. So that's where all that money is going. And Senator Wagner has been introducing legislation to discontinue that dues collection. And the union becomes the exclusive bargaining unit for the teachers and employees, but non-unions also have to pay a certain portion of dues. It's called fair share. You may hear it, you may not, but it doesn't matter whether they actually belong to the union. They will have to pay their fair share of dues, regardless, because that's in the contract approved by the board. All teachers are paid the same starting salary regardless of classification. This is the one that really threw me when I saw it the first time. I said, are you telling me that there's no difference between became English teachers, history teachers, math teachers, phys ed teachers, whatever they're at. Said, nope, absolutely not. They all start at the same level. And when you look at it, you just can't believe it. You say, well, why would somebody be, a math teacher, which is very difficult, instead of being a phys ed teacher, But that's the way the system works. And as they go up each year they get automatic increases and step levels and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to overwhelm you with all the details, but normally what you see in the contract, and they'll say they got a 2% raise, that's the COLA, the cost of living adjustment. That's not all of it, though. There are step increases that are in addition to that COLA that every teacher gets every year, all the time. Okay, I know you can't see this, but this is the cycle of the union dues, right? Basically, you take the union dues from the teachers and the members, you pass that on to the association. The association passes it on to the various organizations, in our case the PSEA, and then that follows there, okay, and becomes, at some point, it's backing political candidates for office, right? Either for state, local, or school district, right? A lot of that money's flowing back, so the same money that was collected in dues is coming back and being recycled over and over again. And that is quite a bit of money. Yeah, the other part of the teacher's contract includes retirement benefits, which are calculated on the high 3-year earnings that include extracurricular payments. Now, they may have had a high 3-year salary midpoint of their experience. However, most people go out at the high 3. That's what most of them do. But you might have had some people that actually had their high 3 salary 10 years before that. But the pension itself is going to be based on the high 3-year salary. In addition to that, there are coaches, mentors, all this other stuff that are called extracurricular activities. They are also paid for those extracurricular activities. A lot of athletes and athletic directors are paid. That's in addition to their normal teaching salary. When I sat on the board, I made it a practice to ask them, whenever there was approval of extracurricular activity, coaching and that sort of stuff, I wanted to know how many people were employees, how many people were not employees. When that first started, most of them were all employees. Well, right now we're getting to an average of about somewhere around 40% non-teachers, non-employees, right? So at least their portion is not going into their state pension. In the case of the teachers that are coaches, they're also getting that added to their pension, and when it's calculated, they're getting that when they retire. All continuing education and advanced degrees or education resulting in advanced degrees are paid by the district. And the work schedule is for 9 months with holiday breaks. I think that's pretty good. Now, there are a number of school-related issues. I think as Ed was pointing out, there are a lot of issues per se, and a lot of them related to the school districts. But the most prominent ones I was thinking about were the school property tax issue, pension reform, Common Core, prevailing wage law, school district budgeting, school choice. Senator Fulmer is here, and he knows all about school choice. He's got an excellent group up there handling that. And PA right to know law. Those are some of the issues. The property tax issue, I unlike Ed, I keep pushing and hoping that it will get passed. Right, we're getting very close, a lot closer than we used to be. but it's probably the most vetted piece of legislation in the world. It's called HB 76 and SB 76, which eliminates the property tax. The next slide, you can't see all the figures, I don't think, but basically what that tells you is this is the Dallastown area school budget history and trends, and as you can see, I've plotted it from 1997 up to 2014, and it's pretty obvious that the only way it's going is up. It's never going down, and it's going up substantially. The thing that's really driving it now is the pension cost. Right now we've got, I think, a $50-some billion deficit, and that's going to increase every year, substantially every year. But this just gives you an idea of that it's going in the wrong direction. It's not coming down. It just keeps going up. It's going to be unsustainable, so I don't know what we're going to do with it. And the way I've plotted it is to look at it from the standpoint of what's the enrollment, what's the school enrollment. So I've plotted the school enrollment with the school budget, right? And as you can see, even though the enrollment sometimes goes down, the budget keeps going up. Okay, the pension issue. The real problem with the pension now is in 2001, they passed Act 9, okay, which increased benefits for teachers by 25%, but it also increased the pension for legislators by 50%. That's a huge increase, right? That was supposedly based on, I don't know whose actuarial charts they were using, but they were dead wrong. Because right now, those increases are totally unsustainable. The state can't pay them. Nobody can keep up with them anymore. So the only thing that's going to happen is, I guess, the state goes bankrupt because they can't pay it, right? Or they repeal, which I think it'd be the best to do, is repeal that act, right? Now I've heard some of them say they can't do that because they made promises to the people that are getting those pensions, right? My comeback at it is, well, you didn't make any promises to the taxpayers who are stuck with the bill to pay for this, right? If those increases have been based upon actuarial charts that relied on only the earnings from the pension system, then you'd be okay, because the pension system invests a lot of money, they make a lot of money, but in this case, they cannot make enough to keep up with the increases. So if it was limited to just the earnings from the system, the taxpayers wouldn't be involved, it'd be fine. And it would go up and down on its own. But we can't do that unless they repeal Act 9. I think there are other suggestions, but none of them that include a repeal of Act 9. Another fun thing is the Pennsylvania prevailing wage law. It's only required to be enforced for government contracts, so money paid for by taxpayers. It generally adds 20 to 30% in cost to any government project. Everybody knows that, right? And all it does is force the contractors to pay artificial rates, okay, that are defined by the government, and generally they're 20 to 30% higher than they would be from the private sector. So I hope there's an effort in Harrisburg now to eliminate the prevailing wage law. Another interesting thing is sometimes the school districts, you ask them for information, and they just say, no, we're not going to give it to you. But it's your information. All those records, all that information is yours. Well, what's your recourse to do something else? There's a law called the Right to Know law. It was passed a few years ago. And the Pennsylvania Right to Know law, if you want records, you can request those records. They have to do it formally to the school district, put it in writing, and send it to them. they have to reply within 5 days. Now, if they refuse to give you the records, they've got to give you a good reason as to why they're doing that. And when you get their reason, you can judge for yourself whether it's reasonable or they're just trying to pull a fast one on you. There's even a right to appeal if they don't give you those records. You can appeal it. You can take them to court. You could first appeal it to the Right to Know office, the Open Records office, the state office, or you can appeal it to the courts. So generally, they will give you information if you request it formally under the Right to Know. If they don't, and you think you got a good case, it's going to be difficult, I can tell you. But you will get the records at some point. Okay, so what's next? From a personal standpoint, I know a lot of you may not want to run for school board, but you still have to get involved in the process to get yourself informed, right? You should be getting yourself informed simply because you get a tax bill every year and you get mad every time you get it. So how do you get that information? Well, the first thing you do is go to the school district website. Every one of them has a website. And you can download the information about who are your school directors, right? There are 9 of them. You know, what are they in different regions? What's their contact information? You know, their email address, things like that. That's the first thing you want to get. The second thing you want to do is request a copy of the teacher's contract. You might get some resistance about that. They may say, well, wow, that's a lot of information. Well, that's too bad. I want a copy of the contract. They can say, well, we're going to charge you 25 cents a page. And you might get a fat bill if you tell them okay, but request it in the form of electronic or digital form, right? And have it send it to you. They won't charge you anything to do that, but you'll get it in electronic form, download it to your computer, and then you can do it on your computer. You can read it, print it out, do whatever you want without paying a 25-cent per copy charge. Next thing you want to do is get a copy of the current annual budget. That should be posted online. Don't know whether it's on all of the websites, but I know it's on Dallastown's website. So that should be posted there. You can look it up, right, and see what was budgeted for teacher salaries and all the other things. The other thing you want to ask for is staffing. District staffing by building, okay? They all have school buildings. They have elementary schools, middle schools, high school. You want to try to get the staffing for each one of those buildings, right? And if you can, get the student population by building, all right? So every building is going to have X number of kids, and every building is going to have X number of staffing. There'll be teachers, there'll be support personnel, there might be paraprofessionals, but you're starting getting information. Each time you get that information and you start reading it, right, you'll be surprised at what's going on, right? Sometimes you might even get mad about what's going on and say, well, what the hell are they spending this money for? That's how you got to start, right? And you don't have to run for school board to do that. You can just do it for yourself, right? And for your neighbors, right? And share the information with your neighbors. And then gather copies of your tax bills while you're at it. You probably already have those pretty handy, but if you can get all those things in one place, just do it for yourself. You know, just as a way of knowing what's going on in the school district and why you're paying this bill. Okay, the other thing you should do is contact the school directors with your concerns. There might be 1 or 2 things you're concerned about before you get too far into the weeds with the information, but then again, maybe there's some major issues going on. Shelva's going to talk about Common Core. It's a nightmare. I don't think anybody understands it. Nobody knows what it's costing, but it's an interesting thing. You also want to get a list of all of your state representatives, both in the House and in the Senate. Get their contact information. They're very easy to get to if you have the right phone numbers and right information, and they will help you out a lot. And then attend the school board meetings. I may be one of the few people still attending Dallastown School District meetings, school board meetings. It's pretty dull. There's not a whole lot of disagreement, discussion, et cetera. There's just an agenda, and it's like 1, 2, 3, yay, 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 and that's it. And they ask for public comment, but in the case of Dallastown, they don't put any links on the agenda until Thursday afternoon late, so you can't even find out what the detail is they're talking about, right? So when it comes up to public comment, what are you going to say? I don't know what you're doing. So that's got to be changed. But if the school district posts the agenda and posts a link to the supporting detail, it at least lets you know what's going on. And the one you always want to keep your eye out is for the teacher's contract and the budget. Those are the two items. Now, if you're doing this just for yourself, that's fine. But you might want to do it in order to run for office. So you can encourage other people to run for office, or you yourself can run for office, right? It's every 2 years they have the election. It's called a municipal election, right? So that's when the school board directors get elected. And that's when you want to say to yourself, well, gee, could I run? Or maybe I could support somebody else to run, right? And maybe you're talking to your neighbors and you got a group going that's like maybe a couple going to the school board meetings and doing something else, but at least you're getting into the support role or running for office. I think you should attend the school board meetings if you can. Just take a little bit of time and go to one and then see what you think of it. If you need information about the elections, the York County Elections Board is very good about giving you information. They're located in the old courthouse. They will give you this time schedule, the filing requirements, all the things that you need, okay, to run for office, and they'll help you out with it. And then you have to file a petition, okay? If you're a Republican, you file a petition. If you're Democrat, you file a petition. But if you're running for school board, you can actually file for Democrat and Republican, called cross-filing. You can file both Republican and Democrat. You just have to have a Democrat help you get the Democrat petition signed so that you can run. But you can appear on the ballot both Democrat and Republican. Then run for office. And if you don't succeed, just keep trying. There's some online resources I've provided for you for Department of Education, the school boards. The Commonwealth, I find, is one of the best sources of information that you can find. There's a fellow named Brulette who runs the thing, and you can join the organization if you want, but they put out a lot of information about government, schools, all sorts of things. They're excellent. And then the Open Records Office will give you any information regarding the law or how to file an open records request. And last but not least, thank you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Run for board. Ran a little over.
It's an excellent PowerPoint presentation. Is it available?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it will be on the website. Is that right? It'll be on the website, so you can get to it on the website.
Thank you.
Yes.
What are the Patriots' goals to reduce the cost of schooling?
What's the? You said what? What's the pension?
What is the 9/12 Patriots' goals in reducing the pension, dealing with some of the issues?
I think the goals of the organization are to get as much information to you as members, right, that will let you make decisions about how you're going to go about doing things. Okay, without information, if you're not informed, you don't know what you're doing.
You just brought up one thing. Teachers have one bargaining agent representing.
Yes.
Okay, we have no vote, no say, no.
Yes.
They go for binding arbitration. Binding arbitration gives the school districts what they want every time. What good is it?
Yeah. I agree with you, but here's the only thing you can do, unless the law's changed, okay, we don't have any referendum, right? The only way it goes to referendum, right, is the budget first. It won't go to referendum at all. the teacher's contract is what they call, it's a legal matter. So the public is not allowed to see it until it exists, right? And by the time it exists, it's been voted on by the school board, it's been approved, and you don't even know what's in it. Now, I can tell you my own personal experiences. They brought the contract to the board 2 hours before the meeting, right? I'm on the school board at that point, and they handed me the request and say, hey, we're voting on the contract tonight. And I said, I'm not voting for it. I don't vote for anything unless I review it, right? Well, no, we have to do this. We got to do this, right? They went ahead and approved it, right? None of them actually read the whole thing, right? But they approved it, and I said, well, I'm going to vote against it, you know? And of course, I was the only one who voted against it, but yeah, it's the only thing you can do is to contact the school directors, right? And start with questions like, did you review the contract before you approved it, right? And sometimes you'll get a yes, no, whatever, right? I approached a couple of them and said, hey, you know, you say you're a conservative running for school director, but you vote yes on everything that you're doing, especially the contract. Well, you know, we don't like dues collection either, paid by the. I said, well, why didn't you vote for the contract? They didn't vote against it, they voted for it. Well, they tried. I said, well, who knows that? Nobody knows that. So it's a backroom deal, yeah.
Don't you think that starts in Harrisburg to clean up the rules?
I think.
Right there's the guy.
I'm not sure whether he's got an answer to that or not.
But I'm saying it starts in Harrisburg.
Senator Fulmer, he and another fellow named Andy Dinniman, who's the minority chair, they do a great job when it comes to education committee. I tell you, if you really want to find out what's going on, you just go to their committee hearing and listen to what's going on. You'll learn a ton of information. Right?
Now, one thing you bring up prevailing
But
wage.
they might be able to do something to force that contract to be made public at least 30 days before the approval.
Well, he's the first senator we've had that started to do something. Right, Scott Wagner.
That would be a great idea.
11% of the average school budget is for building construction and operating and maintenance costs. You say 20 to 30%, that's 2% or 3% of your budget. But yet, we turn around and pay the teachers high salaries, high benefits and everything else, and you're denying the average working person a little bit of incentive to go build a school. I'm not in favor of getting rid of prevailing wage until you reduce the level at which you pay teachers.
Okay, I mean, I can tell you that, you know, my problem with teacher salaries per se is it's not based on performance, right? It's not based on student achievement. And it should be, but it's not, I can tell you that. Yes?
Carol, to address this gentleman's comment partially, I think you got to look at individual school districts. And, you know, Carol was talking primarily about the Dallastown
Right.
process. But if you go to York Suburban, I can guarantee you that they have already started talking about the upcoming teacher's contract that expires on June 30th of this year. They've already got a negotiating team in place. They've already had their select committee from the school board appointed and started to meet with the Teachers Association. And 6 months from when that contract is actually, or I think it's voted on in May, but 5 months before that contract is voted on, you can get information about what the details of that contract are and where that negotiating process stands. And that's at York Suburban. Dallastown, different story. But in some school districts, if you get involved, and that's the point here, if you get involved, and if you were involved in York Suburban, you can know the details of that teacher's contract pretty much at any time between now and when it's voted.
Yeah, I think as a standing rule, it should be published and available for public comment 30 days before it's approved. In other words, the board can approve it tentatively and say this is the agreement, and then the public should be able to look at that agreement for 30 days.
Carol, the public can go to any meeting. They meet twice a month. And at every one of those meetings, they talk about the contract negotiations and what are going on in those contract negotiations.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, you know what? If we want to know what the problem is, a lot of us have to look in the mirror. That's what the problem is, because nobody's going there and finding out what the details are.
Exactly, exactly, amen. If you look at this room, thank God you guys are here. How many people are here? 75 people? that are here to look at school districts that are, how many people are in these school districts? So complaints absolutely from people who are here and want to do stuff are completely valid. But you've got stuff going on in the school districts that are very, very important. And there are 75 people here that are pretty much looking at what's going on in Dallastown. So we need to look in the mirror. We need to talk to our neighbors. We need to say, you stop complaining unless you're going to do something. Unless you're going to vote for school board members that will support you and support the values that we have and support dealing with our children. And I'm full disclosure, my husband's on
Okay. I don't want to hold up the rest of the crowd, but we're going to have a breakout session after the meeting to talk about the school districts and specifically within your school district.
Can I have 2 minutes? I just want to quickly say that one of the things that amazes me about school board stuff is that this election, when you know, if I was king, I would change all this, but that when you actually run, it's the least attended election. 11% is a good turnout for this election. Most of the people voting have no clue who they're voting for, and so actually, as it turns out, I mean, thank you for coming to vote, but as it turns out, the most important thing is where you are on the ballot, which is by blind luck. And so unless you get out and actually run and kiss babies and do everything that goes with that, then it's kind of hard to get elected. Now, I will tell you very quickly that at Central, and I see we have some of our regulars here, Mike Snyder's here, we are engaged in very contentious, and have been for 22 months with our teachers union, and I'm one of the negotiators, and I got to be careful because I'm getting filmed. But I will tell you that we are not backing down. Here's a fact, this is on the website, is we got forced into what I would call non-binding arbitration, but it's actually called fact-finding, but it's when you get to a certain point and you're not getting anywhere, then this guy comes in. And so our lawyer wrote a paper, if you will, about 35, 40 pages that would stand up to any academic scrutiny with footnotes and a bibliography that proved beyond a doubt that our teachers are paid an extremely fair wage in York County compared to similarly educated people with the same age differences and things. And so they're not underpaid. That's a myth that gets pounded out continually by their union. And secondly, at Central, we are demanding, and I just find this really hard to deal with, but we are demanding they pay a little more for health care, just like every other American in this room is doing. And it's amazing to me that their union was supportive of Obama, was supportive of the Affordable Care Act, but they want to be immune from it. And, at some point, they need to belly up and pay just like the rest of us are doing. So I don't know where we're going before it's all done, but I can assure you that we're standing fast, and the reason why, and what he says is totally correct, is you need to know who you're electing, who you're putting on the board, and what they stand for. And I have a reputation, I think, as being anti-teacher, and I am not anti-teacher. What is more important than educating our kids and having good people doing it? But at the same token, they are members of our community, and they need to when the times are hard, and they are hard, then they need to live within the means. I'm not going to allow them to break our district. And so run, please, and we'll be at the breakout session and we can talk. I came here. I ran the first time and didn't make it. By the way, I'm a retired Air Force guy, and I'm an airline pilot now, and I sent my beautiful wife here to talk to me last time I was here. I said the greatest retirement job in the world, if we could just get past the part about having to show up. So, thanks.
All right. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate all that information. I just got a comment. What are we going to do about it? We are you. You are us. This is the group. It's not we, it's we. What are we going to do about it? I've had people ask us, what's the 912 Patriots doing? Well, we're educating. We're getting the information out. But what are we doing? And that's what I was talking about throughout my opening statements is, what are we going to do? What have you done? we can accomplish a lot if we just try, get involved. So, all right, now we're going to get on to Common Core, and who's going to take the first? You're gonna
No, I don't have a way. Yeah. Shall my name is Randy Covington. I'm new to Pennsylvania from Florida in the last year. Thank you. I was deeply involved in the Common Core issue in Florida. I have well in excess of 200 hours of research into this issue. It applies here absolutely, even though this state was not brought into Common Core through Race to the Top. You still are in the Common Core umbrella. There are over 40 states that exist under the Common Core umbrella right now that have approved it and accepted it, and I'll get to the point of how they got there in just a second. What it is, essentially, is a takeover of the governance of education policy by the federal government, specifically Barack Obama and his Department of Education. He finalized the piece that brought everything under one umbrella as to standards and testing, and through that, what they really wanted, and they deny every time, is curriculum. When you control the standards and the testing, you control the curriculum. Would you hit that space bar, please? How he did it was Race to the Top. That's the final piece. Actually, the federal government has been moving through a series of grants coming through the 1990s and 2000s, and incrementally, through mandates and federal grants to states and school boards, have been pushing different pieces of this to get it accepted and have states and school boards actually surrender their sovereignty over policy in favor of federal policy when it comes to education. What they did is they set up the Race to the Top competition among the states. They had $4.4 billion that they offered up as a prize, and the states had to apply and put very elaborate plans in place to meet the requirements of the Race to the Top grants in order to be considered to receive the grant money. A state that came in and applied for the grants didn't have, it wasn't that they just had to be willing to accept the grants, they had to show progress towards being on the road already. So, also under Race to the Top, there was a separate set of grants that funded the development of what they call assessments, which is the testing piece of this, which is basically they're ramping up the testing so that kids are going to be tested as many as 20 times a year to see if they're on track with the Common Core standards. Let's talk about the standards real quick. Everybody wants to argue about the standards, and the standards are kind of irrelevant. Everything in this country, everything in a civilized society is based on some standard. Standards are good when they're developed in a proper manner. The Common Core standards were not done so. They were written by basically two people and never properly vetted through the proper peer review process to determine that they were adequate or better than any of the existing state standards they were intended to replace. In fact, two very high-profile educators of stellar credentials were asked to review the standards at the end of the process after they were written. Both of them refused to sign off on them, saying they were not as they were presented, they were not internationally benchmarked, and they were not high standards when compared to certain state standards. Florida standards were considered to be better in many cases. Massachusetts standards were considered to be better in many cases. So what they did as part of that Race to the Top process, they mandated that states among many other things except the Common Core. They said Common Core standards widely accepted. There was nothing else in existence at that point in time except Common Core. They created this ruse that the Common Core was developed by the National Governors Association. It's a complete lie. The National Governors Association did not create the Common Core standards. They allowed their organization to be used to commit a ruse on all of you sitting here so that you would think it was actually a creation of the states. It's wholly a creation of Achieve Incorporated, which is funded by mostly grants from private corporations and the federal government. Included as part of this, which is the most onerous thing, is what they call the longitudinal data systems. All the states who applied and all the states who also bought into Common Core, even if they didn't get there through Race to the Top, agreed to implement what they call longitudinal data systems. They were given money to do this. And that's my background, that's Ed's background. The longitudinal data system that the federal government created, which they will happily give you for free. In fact, you can go and download the software. They will implement it tonight for free from their website. That data system collects over 400 pieces of data on your not only your student, your children, everybody in the household, your income, where you work, how are you here? Are you here on a visa? Are you here illegally? Are you a citizen? It collects records on medical, etc. They're collecting more data through that data system than the NSA collects on you. Now, they will claim that it's protected because no personally identifiable information will be given to outsiders. That's wrong. The way that the data is set up, to a 90% accuracy, they can mine your data against other public databases and determine what household that data came from. And it won't matter, there's also a piece in there which identifies the lat and longitude of the student in the record. So even if they don't have the name, they know where you live. They just went through an iteration on that. There's a new set of additions coming to that that's been published on the SEDS website. They have designed the database now, additions to the database, where they can track every answer of every test of every student they ever take. And included in that are fields to monitor physical response to what they call hot text and hot graphics. There was a big amount of controversy in Utah where they were having students wear monitors on their skin to determine the students' physical responses to certain questions. How many people in here have students, or children or grandchildren in the schools? You don't. You don't have kids in the schools anymore. They're lab rats. And I'm serious about that. They're lab rats. Would you hit the next, please? The carrots. The biggest carrot, of course, was money. It's probably a great deal of entertainment to a federal bureaucrat to walk into a room full of elected officials and throw a check on the floor and say, that's free money, and watch what they do. In the state of Florida, they applied the first time and were turned down. They were told what they had to do to increase their score so they would be successful in the next go-round, which they did. They applied the second year, and they received a grant of $700 million. My county, one of 67 counties in Florida, which signed on to Race to the Top, because that was a requirement. They had to go to every county and get the superintendent and the head of the union and the school board to accept it. The superintendent wrote his recommendation to the school board and said, we're going to get $1 million. There's a lot of mandates. A lot of costs to implement the mandates. We don't have a clue what they are. I recommend you accept it. They did. Now they have found out 3 years later that just a digital learning mandate that was included in Race to the Top will be $92 million over 5 years. We got $1 million, and it's going to cost those taxpayers $92 million. That will be the same here. The other carrot was waivers from No Child Left Behind, and that's how Pennsylvania got into the system. You have a waiver in Pennsylvania from No Child Left Behind mandates from back in the late 90s. That's why Pennsylvania bought in. Next one, please. The stick. If states don't comply now, they'll have to repay the grant if they got the grant from Race to the Top. But there are a lot of other grants out there that they slip these requirements into, such as the SLDC grants, the state fiscal stabilization grants in 2009. The state, that's how Obama got the teachers' unions to push Common Core. He saved millions of teachers and firefighters and policemen's jobs with huge grants from the stimulus. The teachers went out and sold Common Core for him. Now they're attacking only the provisions of it which destroyed their tenure, because Race to the Top in Florida destroyed teachers' tenure, required them to eliminate tenure, and teachers have to be paid on the basis of performance in Florida. That will be coming here in some other grant. They'll do that here. And then control over the adoption and adherence by the college boards of the SATs. David Goldman, who now heads the college board, wrote the Common Core. Next slide. Here were the goals, and these quotes are from Arne Duncan in a speech he gave before the United Nations. Universal education. Sound familiar? Eliminating gender inequities and reducing poverty and creating a sustainable planet and to fostering peace. Sounds like a beauty contest. Inspire students, okay, not only to their obligations to their local community, but to the global community. Seed opportunities for transformational change. The curriculums, and this is in the Memorandum of Understanding, it's in the one that Pennsylvania signed. The curriculums and the testing and everything and the standards have to be focused on social justice. That term is in there. That's not made up. And there's also provisions in the Race to the Top Memorandum of Understandings that counties who accept this have set themselves up. If they have low-performing schools on one side of the county, high-performing schools on the other, they can be forced to transfer teachers because that's, of course, the solution. If all the schools over here, the good schools, have the good teachers, if they tell you that, they'll just tell you you're going to have to transfer your teachers. And they redistribute resources under the grants. And again, these are all quotes from Arne Duncan, or they're from the Memorandum of Understanding. Let me have the next slide. Again, this is from the MOU that Pennsylvania signed when they submitted their application. Just look at them. They're in there. If you read the documentation, it's very clear that local school boards no longer make these determinations on policy, not when it comes to curriculums and testing and standards that was forced on them by the states and the federal government. And the last one, I think it's the last one here. The results. The states that bought into Race to the Top sold their sovereignty and their parental rights to the federal government for those grants. A lot of the states accepted lower standards in exchange for the money. And the reason for that is if you want to equalize the system and make it fairer to everybody, you make everybody more same, and you make it easier for the ones on the bottom to achieve the levels that you want to, quote, say is, quote, proficient. Utah implemented the standards and the testing. Their test scores fell 30% the first year. And the huge tax increases, there will be huge tax increases. If you think the tax increases are have been big in the last 10 years in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is in the process of implementing a lot of these mandates for the waiver they got for NCLB. Those costs are going to be paid by you, not the federal government. You're going to pay them. And at the end of the day, all your education for your children is basically being designed by the federal government. And I'm sure just out of a sense of nostalgia, they sit in the room where they did the same thing to design Amtrak, to do it. So if you think that we're on the wrong track now, wait 10 years. And this is true. This is our fault. It's not theirs, it's our fault. And you can fix it. And there's no such thing as free education. Doesn't exist. So in closing, I'm just going to tell you, if you're upset about any of this, you're going to have to fix it. Whatever you can do, talk to your neighbors, run for office, you're going to have to fix it. Get involved. Start figuring out what this is. This is Obamacare. It's not Common Core, it's Obamacare. So get involved. We have a new website that's going to be coming up pretty soon. All of this material will be on that new website. If you're not signed into the new website, so we have your email, make sure you do it, because once we get everything switched over and this becomes available, we'll send out an email blast to everybody, and you can start accessing the material.
Any questions on what he went over?
I would just like to say, I bet Stalin would be so proud of us.
Yeah.
More of a statement.
Jealous, more jealous than proud.
Do you know about also with the tests under the No Child Left Behind, how the states were given the impossible goal of 100% proficiency?
Yes.
So these test scores that parents are receiving are pretty much a ruse as well under
Well,
the PSSAs or whatever they were called, because they're told proficient, but that could be like 30%.
well, I'm going to ask you this. What's proficient?
Well, exactly.
Okay.
The state government.
Proficiency for a physician is a far different concept than proficiency for a farmer or proficiency for an auto mechanic, et cetera. If you don't have clearly vetted and designed standards all the way through, you're never going to achieve reality. You just won't get there. And that was the intent of the No Child Left Behind anyway. That's why the states were desperate for some out from No Child Left Behind, and why they're buying into this, because they can never achieve what No Child Left Behind laid on them in the law. Yeah.
Homeschool, does this go into homeschool as well and side?
Of course it does, because the college boards have been rewritten by David Coleman, who wrote the Common Core standards, to be Common Core aligned. Your kid, if he wants to go to a college in the United States, has to take the SAT or the ACT test. He wrote it. It has to be aligned to Common Core. That's why the curriculums will align to the Common Core. Bill Gates said it. Arnie Duncan said it. That's the real prize for them, is they want the curriculums. And in the email that you got about this meeting, there's a link to a video on there that's extremely disturbing about the curriculums that are coming out. You should watch it. Yeah. Last question. We got to go too. Go ahead.
I'm feeling a little frustrated when we're told that this is our fault and we have to fix it. I understand the our fault part because we've been working very hard in the Northern York School District to go to school board meetings, learn what they're doing, learn how the system works, educate ourselves, because we didn't know how any of this works, and so it's a whole new thing for us.
Right.
So you say we need to fix it. Well, how are we supposed to fix it? That's the problem. It's like, you tell us we need to fix it, but if we have no clue how to do that, then we go back home and we're still right where we were before. And I've spent and they can just talk rings around you because they know this stuff inside and out, and I could spend the next 10 years of my spare time trying to understand this, and they can just talk rings around you.
It's one of the reasons we have the format we have tonight. There's going to be a breakout session for people to be invited to focus on what's happening in their school district and to start to give you the tools that you need to question your officials. At the end of the day, you need to get with your elected officials and say, I don't accept this. And get your neighbors to call them up and say, we don't accept this. And get their neighbors involved and say, we don't accept this. When you start to question and raise your voices, elected officials do pay attention. They understand numbers, whether it's the numbers on a check from a donation from a lobbyist or the numbers of voices they hear criticizing their decisions. That's what they understand are those numbers. So this will not be solved this year or next year or the next 5 years. It's going to take 20 or 50 years. But you got to start here. Okay.
Thank you. Randy, can you go?
Okay. Hi there, I'm Fran Fulton, and Common Core has pretty much taken over my life. So, you can go. I just was education for the minions. So, as he explained, the Common Core is a set of national standards. Math and language arts are the beginning. They have history coming. There's no accountability to the public. Everything was done behind closed doors by, there's no freedom of information requests for meetings because they're all done privately. So it's education without representation. Nobody voted on it. I mean, money was appropriated by Congress, but nobody voted on it. Keep going. It's much bigger than Common Core. So really, this is a whole education reform issue. It's much bigger than just Common Core and just these standards. We almost just need to get away from just labeling stuff Common Core. It's an entire reform movement that has started decades ago. These people have been at this for a very long time. And what's sad is a lot of our, teachers you come across as anti-teacher. This affects them. They're professionals. This is their vocation. They're going to be replaced with minions, teaching minions. And that's how, so this is not anti-teacher or not anti your school administration. They're simply being used by this whole system as well. Their whole livelihood now depends on these evaluations that are tied to test scores. So everything that's going on in a child's life is now, the teacher's responsible for making sure that they do well on that test, because that's their job in some respect. It's a massive data collection. They call it the womb to workplace. If that doesn't bother any mother, the womb, and where are you getting this womb information on my child? It's accessible to third parties. The federal privacy law was changed to allow third parties to access the data. Accessible to. We're not reporting, we're not sending it. It's there, it's right here. You can log into it. It's not, like they keep using the word, there's no data reporting. Well, it's all language. It's all semantic deception. It's all how they use this language to make you believe that you're crazy, that, we're not sending anything. Well, it's accessible to you. You can log into a database and you can look up information. Keep going. Okay. Tom Corbett, another phase of Race to the Top was this early learning challenge. We got like $50+ million. We now have a kindergarten education inventory. So these little ones are not only going to be assessed on academic readiness in kindergarten, but on emotional regulation. Anybody work with 5-year-olds? They're not self-awareness, conflict resolution. Behavior regulation. Any teacher that can take a 5-year-old and they can, score perfect on this stuff, collaborative communication, curiosity and initiative, engagement, attentive, and persistence. This is all in this grant application. All this data is to be stored in this Pelican data system, which is linked to this womb to workplace or the P through 20 lifelong database now. Keep going. We now have early learning standards for these little ones. For one example was standards to economic systems. The learner will attempt to distribute items equally among a group, such as a snack, material, or toys, and the adult will ask open-ended questions about unfair distribution, such as one child has more or less, and assist with anybody work with children and tell them, give up your toy. But I mean, this is, what is the point of this? They're children. Why, okay. And assist with equal distribution, keep going. Next slide. Yes, and the learner will correct the problem if one child has more or less than another. And the adult will discuss why everyone should have a fair share. These are 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds. Start them young with this nonsense. They already, everything's not fair to them. Okay, next one. Here's all the lingo: college and career ready, rigorous, robust. This is all, in the package. Keep going. So these are the cast of characters involved in these reform. This is Mark Tucker. He's been around for a very long time. He wrote a letter in 1992 to Hillary Clinton. The goals are to remold the entire American system into a seamless web that literally extends from cradle to grave and is the same system for everyone. A system of labor market boards at the local, state, and federal levels where curriculum and job matching will be handled by counselors accessing the integrated computer-based program. 1992. They've been at this for a long time. Next one. Then we got Arnie Duncan. 2010, Vision of Education Reform. The administration has sought to fundamentally shift the federal role so that the department is doing much more. America is now in the midst of a quiet revolution in school reform. And supposedly President Obama called on the nation of governors and state school chiefs to develop standards. That's not his job. That's not a role of the federal government to do any of this, period. Assessments are now called assessments. They're not called tests anymore, they're assessments, because assessments are a procedure for obtaining information from tests and other sources that can be used to draw inferences about characteristics of people, objects, or programs. It's like psychological fishing. They're not testing objective facts and actual knowledge. These test questions are being manipulated in ways where they can get a lot more information than just, did you read this text and, can you comprehend? It's, of course, it's all crazy. We're all crazy. So here's Alabama, 1935. And this is what we have now. And does anybody think our kids are getting a better education? Okay, next one. So Common Core Big Data. This was from a look at Pennsylvania's early childhood data system. The state's goal is a true P20 data system with bidirectional information access and data sharing. The Early Learning Network will be linked to the Pennsylvania system. The K-12 Education Data Warehouse will also be connected to data from the post-secondary and workforce systems in a few years. For what? Why? Why do they need this data to educate our children? Why, to what purpose? Big data, early childhood womb to comprehensive early childhood system of assessment, which is integrated into the state's unified data system. That's from Pelican. Collects information about children's teachers and programs overseen by the Office of Childhood Development. So we have all these pieces. It's not just the Department of Education. All these state departments got money to put their little piece in place of this mess. So it's going to include children's family demographics, health information, service referrals, attendance and enrollment details, and a unique child identifier common to both the state public welfare and education data systems. Print out this grant, read it. These people believe that the state is responsible for the child, not the parent. They believe, they truly, and I believe some are well-intended. They honestly believe parents are not up to the job. We need to step in. They even have a guiding GPS system for parents, guiding parents safely with, things about changing a diaper. This is not the state's job. Okay, let's go. So who are they going to be lying to? You in their grant, us, or the federal government in their grant application? And like I keep saying, why is this even necessary to educate our children? Big data federal privacy law was changed to remove the parental consent requirement on who can access data on your child. And FERPA trumps HIPAA if your child's medical record is part of the education record. So your kid, sometimes we asked to fill out the form, has he seen the doctor? And the doctor fills out that little sheet. That's part of the education record now. Kid has any psychological problems, that they see the guidance counselor. We voluntarily provide a lot of information, and including that FAFSA form. Aren't we all supposed to fill that out? And we're just giving them this information. So Southeastern, my school district, summer 2013 edition of the newsletter, the right to privacy of personally identifiable information in the student's education records, except to the extent that FERPA authorized disclosure without consent. So, okay, keep going. This computer adaptive testing, they're getting these CDTs and Shelvanos, about that. I'm wondering, with this Child Online Privacy Protection Act, so they're not to ask children under 12 any private personal information. So if this is going into computer-based, that's into these cloud data systems now, they should be protected under that. And how much time are they going to spend taking tests during the school years? Computers break, computers go down. How much stress is that going to add to these kids taking these tests, when their mouse doesn't work or something doesn't work? So, and you're not going to know the questions that are on the tests. They're all going to, and with computers, you could look at a test today and someone behind the scenes can change it tomorrow with all this internet web stuff. And now Shelva's going to take over and talk about stuff she's experienced. But the bottom line is, who's in control? Not parents, not teachers, and not elected representatives.
I'll make this quick. I have started attending school board meetings because of a request in a meeting like this 4 years ago at the 9/12 Patriots Meeting. I started going because of the budget. I started listening to what was discussed at the meetings, and I've been going ever since. So I have been attending regular for 4 years. A couple of the board meeting members are here tonight, and I am one of the people who go forward and I make my comments. I don't know if it makes any difference, but I do try to educate the board as to my opinions. What I was seeing, I didn't realize it was all had to do with this Common Core. My district was pilot program, and my superintendent wrote the whole thing out with all the details to get into this race to the top money. And when I realized all this stuff was transforming the school, I didn't know it was Common Core. But basically, Common Core, I'm going to tell you my experiences now. The Common Core Standards is a social, emotional, and academic transformation of America's education system. The goal is to remove traditional culture in the United States and replace it with 21st century multiculturalism. This is about so much more, deeper than standards. This will remove the foundation of the heritage of America and control the education of every child from birth to career in public, private, and home schools if we don't stop this. This will be a requirement for graduation in 2017. We do not have much time. I'm going to give you 10 things that I found that I want stopped, which is why I would like to see a lot of people get involved with finding out, attending the board meetings, knowing what's going on. Number one, social workers are controlling the emotional behavior. We had 3 full-time social workers. And number 2, diversity counselors. They control the social behavior. These social counselors promote the secular values of Planned Parenthood and the Southern Poverty Law Center to co-parent our children. They want to remove traditional American values of faith, family, and freedom, and promote the values of multiculturalism. Instead of assimilating as one nation under God, they promote a global society controlled by government, a secular society of humanism, no God, sexism, pleasure, sex for pleasure, environmentalism, global warming, and socialism, social justice. Number 3, standardized tests control the curriculum. As you heard tonight, the two are hand in hand. Number 4, the assessments control the student learning. The student assessments determine what our children are learning and how they collaborate with others. These computerized tests are given 3 to 5 times a year now instead of once a year. These are in addition. These are called computer aptitude tests, the CATs, also known as classroom diagnostic tool, the CDTs. And these tests are optional, but parents are not told. But we need to get the word out to parents. Opt your kids out. All you have to do, tell the teacher, I want my kids opted out. Number 5, classroom evaluations control teachers. They make us feel like these new evaluations are going to determine who is a good teacher and who is a poor teacher. I do not see that this is going to improve teachers. I believe this is a way to control what the teachers are facilitating in the classroom because it must align with Common Core. The teachers have no freedom to teach anymore. It must be aligned to these standards, and they're being watched with these tests. Number 6, data mining controls family privacy. We spoke about that. It's social, emotional, student academics, family privacy. It's all in that data system. Our school district paid $200,000 for the equipment to handle this extra data, plus thousands and thousands of more dollars, very expensive. Number 7, school policies control the parental rights. We now have one-on-one technology. Every child, the goal is for every child to have a computer. And what these policies do is they put the administration in authority of the actions of our children. They remove the authority of parents. They think the child belongs to the school. Number 8, government regulations control the local school boards. The public unions are putting all these policies in place to the school board members through the superintendent, and they are told it's the law. Therefore, the school board members, they vote on the policies, but they say that it has to be the way they're directed. So the only authority they have is to raise our taxes, to pay for the Common Core mandates, the pensions, the health care benefits, and the expansion of special education costs for the remediation of the failing student assessments. For all these tests these kids do, then they have to go, if they're not proficient, they have to go into remediation. So we have all these extra teachers to help these kids, which makes education more expensive, and the special education grows drastically every year. And number 9, learning coaches. This year we got learning coaches. 9th through 12th grade, they're going to meet with a learning coach the first 15 minutes of every day. And this is what it states. The goal of a central learning coach is to develop sustained relationships with his or her students. Ultimately, these relationships will assist in meeting the social, emotional, and academic needs of all students. And number 10, graduation requirements. Of course, this affects college, and if we don't stop these this requirement for graduation, this is what is going to affect the private and homeschoolers. This graduation requirement for graduation really concerns me. This was approved, I guess, by the state. And if this takes place, then education will then be nationally controlled by the federal government for every student. Our education crisis is not test scores. It is parent responsibility, drug addiction, sex crimes, college debt, work ethics, and job compatibility. Our public school system is failing, and more money is not the solution. And we need local school boards to stand against this national progressive takeover of education, or we will be under the federal government. And it is time that we take a stand against this. Thank you.
We were about 30 minutes behind schedule. We had a lot of information here to cover, and it didn't go as quickly as I wanted to. We have about 10 minutes left. We can do several things here. We have the breakout session over there. I would like to at least get people over there, get people to sign up and just start the groups just to get communicating, write your names down so people can start to work together. We also have Senator Fulmer here. He could speak as well. What is the consensus? Who all wants to go over and at least write their name down and start to, you want to, okay, that's fine. Is everybody okay with that? All right, cool.
I'll be real quick. I do not want to contribute too much to global warming. I'll try to keep my carbon footprint down. Folks had a great meeting tonight. A lot of great information. I just want to let you know that. Ladies and gentlemen, this battle we have on education, I can give you an update in Harrisburg. Nothing much has happened, folks. I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm just being honest. We're going to come back. I'm hoping we have a special session right after we get back in January. A couple of things I'd like to get done. Paycheck protection and the union bullying bill would be two easy things to get done. Give us a quick victory and get, because that's going to be key, the paycheck protection. If you want right to work, if you want to get school costs under control, that's going to be key. But what I'd really like to talk to you about real quick, because I know it's been a long night and you folks are out here this evening and it's a work night and you all have to work for a living, and I get that, is that everything that was spoken tonight on Common Core and the state takeover of our children is absolutely correct. But folks, this even goes even farther than 1992. This goes back to the 1830s, Horace Mann. I can take you to, let's push forward to John Dewey, who was a member and one of the co-founders of the American Secular Humanist Society when the Secular Humanist Manifesto was signed in 1930, and pushing forward. It was a Presbyterian theologian who was asked to speak before a Senate hearing in 1927 on whether or not we should have a U.S. Department of Education. His name was J. Grayson Machen. Dr. Machen who left Princeton Seminary when it became liberal and pushed and opened up Westminster Theological Seminary in Philadelphia, and brought a bunch of good men with him there. He testified and said this. He said that standardization, by having a U.S. Department of Education back then, if you would read his testimony, he sounds like a prophet to this day, and it's so interesting. Folks, here's the deal. And I know this because I asked this question and it was pushed back to me at an actual hearing, an appropriations hearing, when we were talking about my school choice. In all honesty, ladies and gentlemen, real quick, and there's a lot of things bouncing through my head because I just want to be really quick. If you really want to fix this mess, if you really want to fix this mess, we have created an educational industrial complex over the last 100 years. And we have wrapped the child around it. Not because it's about the child, but because it's the best way that you can ask for more money to run this educational industrial complex. And I'm telling you that the only way this is going to be fixed is that, and I said this at a hearing, and here's what I said. Now granted, what I'm about to say is very general, and the devil would be in the details in doing it right. There would be details that would have to be looked at and so forth. But this is how it should work. We come up with a price per child, file that money with that child, and allow the parent to decide where they want to send that child, plain and simple. Now, there's the devil's in the detail on how you do it, granted, because you're going to have state monies and you're going to have, requirements, because that's what we like to do. We like to send money down with all the bells and whistles that go with it. But because here's what came out of that. I was talking about parents' responsibility at this hearing. I was talking about how we need to encourage parents to get more and more involved in their child's education if we're really going to get it done. And this educational elitist said, well, Senator, in all due respect, and then I appreciate what you're saying, sir, which basically he was talking me down, because he has the PhD and whatever else and so forth, was saying, you may be the parent, but we're the experts. We know what's best for your child. That was actually said. That's on the record. We know what's, in other words, our children don't belong to us. It belongs to the state. And this whole Common Core stuff, this is nothing more than the fruit that we're reaping from the seeds that were sown decades and decades and decades ago. And we were kind of asleep because we felt warm and comfy with our local schools. We went to their graduations, we felt good, and we knew the teachers, they live in our, but we didn't see what was being taught. And lo and behold, we send our kids, we teach them the values that we want to teach them, and so forth. They come home totally believing something different. And I'm going to leave this with you also. I created 6 different work groups as the chairman of this state education committee for the 48th district. I had 3 meetings with parents and students, which were taken over by the PSEA. Then with the business, with the superintendents and so forth, just with the educators. And then another group, another 3 meetings with 9 meetings in all with the business community. In my first one, which was up at Lebanon Valley College in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, was the first one with the parents. A student, a professor of their educational curriculum at Lebanon Valley College had 5 of her star students that were going to be student teachers. And here's what, this one young lady was sitting at the chair there, and she was so full of vip and vinegar. She couldn't wait to get out there to teach, and she seemed so excited. And I said, wow, why did you get into teaching? She said, because I want to help affect social justice. That's just coming out of school, folks. So the barbarians are not only at the gate, they're over the fence. They were in our schools, they were in our living rooms, they're in our churches, and they're in our government. And our battle's going to be this, ladies and gentlemen, is that we're going to have to fight this with one battle at a time. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be doing on the inside. I'm working on a piece of major legislation that's going to affect the whole data collection in Common Core. Because I believe if you take away the data collection ability, you put a big crunch right into it. So that's going to be the first step that I'm going to try to do on the legislative side of things. Meanwhile, do the breakout sessions. You had a great information tonight. The information that these people gave to you this evening was very, very accurate. And it's not some kind of tinfoil hat thing that we're get accused of as being conservatives, I do have a tinfoil hat, I admit it, Those black helicopters are following me everywhere, I admit that too. But the bottom line is, let's get awake. Our children are not the state's. The children belong to us. And while we still have the ability to say that, let's make sure we fight for that freedom and indefeasible right to know that it's my child. And if education is about the child, then let's start making it about the child rather than the adults that work in education. Because as chairman of the State Education Committee on the Senate side, I will tell you this. I have met more acronyms in education than I've ever cared to remember. And they all come and they all talk to you about how educate, we got to do this, and it's about the child, and blah, blah. But it all ends up about the adults that work in it. Now, I am not against teachers. I love teachers. By the way, I think my school choice idea would actually benefit teachers because it would allow teachers to be able to be teachers again and to have individual curriculums and have schools based on what the parents want for best for their child. So on that note, I don't know what your time is. I wanted to be quiet because you're running late. Thank you for having me, and there's 2 questions back here. Yes, sir.
In your frank opinion, do you think there's any chance of getting HB 76 or SB 76 or a similar bill?
Oh, that's a great bill. Listen, in my frank opinion, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. We're reintroducing it. I'm working with Senator Dave Argel all over again. We may have to tweak some of the numbers because we're waiting for the independent fiscal office report to come out because we want to make sure the information is right. But I want to let you know something, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to let you know something right now. The bill that we had done on the Senate side with the amendment that we put into place worked. The numbers worked. It worked, period, because even the enemies that were against us, we invited them into our office. We said, okay, besides the philosophy of this tax shift, what is it about this bill that doesn't work for you, the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, you, the Department, NFIB, the Merchants Association, and so forth and so forth? And they said, well, we really don't like the shift because we don't want our stuff taxed, boom, boom, boom. But if you would do this, reporting would be better or whatever. We took care of the technicalities. We made the bill work. The bill actually works. Now, we ran out of time. So here's what's going to have to happen. In my frank opinion, if the people would wake up on this and we have a coordinated effort and stop arguing amongst ourselves, we would have a real opportunity going forward in 2015 to get a real property tax shift elimination bill done like Senate Bill 76. And my frank opinion. Yes, ma'am.
The slides addressing my question actually about opting out. I have 3 children still currently in school district. Can I just say tomorrow, no more testing? I mean, what happens with Keystone that's required for graduation or those, I mean, are there certain tests I'm legally allowed to say no more?
You know what? I'm not an attorney, and I have to tell you that I'm not quite sure, and I would not want to give you misinformation that would get you into trouble. But I will say you this. In 2010, we did that stupid Keystone exam bill that came out of the Senate Education Committee. I was the only no vote. I just saw it as just one more test, and really what I saw was a continuation of what I saw what was coming down the road in AKA Common Core. As a parent, I would fight for that right. If you think that is best for your child, I would fight for that right. But I don't know what. Here's the problem. As your child is going through school, and as we keep on opting out of these things, because the college boards have been rewritten and everything else, it could really hurt the opportunity. They're trapping us. Amen. Well, and you're right, and you know what? As a parent, I just don't want to be accused of saying Fulmer says everybody have their child out of education now, and you know what? Go ahead. I mean, I don't care if I get blamed for it. I mean, it's your child. Amen. Amen. I am with you 100%. It is your child, and you decide. It's your child. Do not ever give that up. None of us in this room should ever give that up. It's our child. You know, so you know what? If Fulmer gets blamed for it, I don't give a rip. You know, the bottom line is this. We need to take control again. And like I said, I'm going to be working on a comprehensive data collection bill that's going to attack that whole ability, which I think is going to really put a crank in a good right hook anyway. In this whole mess. So thank you very much. Yes?
Will you be doing more meetings around the state, investigational type things? And do you have subpoena power for those meetings?
Well, I have to see how the new committees come out. They have not been announced yet. We did have several hearings on the very issue. In a sense, we do have subpoena power. But I think as far as getting the proper information out there, I think we already know. We know what the problem is. The bottom line is getting the people on the grassroots level to come out and get involved in their local battles and not give up. Because it is daunting, folks. It is daunting because this is a huge, huge mess. Yes, ma'am. This will cover the whole gamut. This will cover the whole gamut. And by the way, even without Common Core, ladies and gentlemen, because the Department, the the Secretary of Education said to me, well, Senator, we're not going to really do there. We're just going to do our data collection. Folks, we were collecting way too much data just on the state side, even before this, what we would refer to as Common Core data collection. I am telling you, they're asking way too many questions that they do not need to know. Okay?
Now, don't get me wrong, I'd love for 76 to pass. I'm just a little unsure that it will, but I hope it does. And now, just a couple minutes, Allison Blue, the vice chair from the York GOP, she had done the school board project 4 years ago, and she's going to speak a couple words before we head over.
So nice of you all to stick around here. Last time I was up here speaking to you, it was 4 years ago when I was pregnant, and same thing now. I hope this doesn't become a pattern, but you never know. I do want to tell you the importance of school boards, and Carol's presentation was excellent. You couldn't find better information. Not only the fiscal issues, but a lot of people sometimes overlook the policy issues and that the school board deals with. And this is something that recently has become a big deal with Suburban School Board passing their new strip search policy. I don't know if you heard of that. Those are things that the school, it means that it's another way to check a child if there's a dangerous situation or they think there's a shooter in the building or something like that. It's another way, and they're calling it the strip search policy. But that's a new policy that York Suburban, Northern York has it, and another one. But those policies regarding the children in the school are passed by the school board. So it's not just financial issues that the school board has say over, it's more issues than that. I wanted to address just this one thing that this lady said, and about Common Core in general. Common Core is not going away. I actually think it's going to be huge in this next election, because one of the biggest proponents of Common Core is Jeb Bush. And guess who everyone's talking about running in 2016? Jeb Bush. Guess who said he's not backing away from Common Core? Jeb Bush. So this is going to get national press. There are other states. My sister lives in North Carolina. Their state legislator kicked Common Core out of the system. Nowadays, we have some Republican representatives who said they've kicked Common Core out. They haven't. They've renamed it PA Core. So voting Republican, even though I'm the vice chair of the Republican committee, voting Republican isn't the solution to this problem. Voting in the primary for someone who has your values is the solution to the problem. And this year, we got another great senator, Scott Wagner, in doing that. And through redistricting now, Senator Fulmer represents part of York County also. So we do have two champions for the cause, so that's great. But, voting in the primary for people who hold your values is important. But how can the York County Republican Committee help you if you decide to run for school board? I was going to run for school board 4 years ago when I ran this project, but then I got pregnant. I had my first child, and I thought one life change at a time was enough. But I recruited someone else in my school district. I live in Eastern School District. I understand that not all of you here can run for school board even as much as you want to. You may work 60, 70 hours a week. You may have 12 children who are in all different sports, and you physically cannot carve out the time to be on the school board. I understand that. But maybe ask other people in your school district if they can, in your region if they can, so you can recruit people. But the Republican committee, one of the purposes of the Republican committee is to recruit Republicans to run and then to help them succeed in running. So if you register as a Republican, and maybe not everyone here will, but if you file as a Republican, the Republican committee can help you through the petition process. The Republican committee can help you in advertising to an extent as far as getting your name out there in your school district. And the Republican committee can just help to in any other way through this election process. I do have some cards if anyone needs a card. If you don't, you can just look up it's the York County Republican Committee or the York GOP, and that will take you to the website with our information on it. But something that we can help is by getting more Republicans elected. That's the purpose of the committee. But not only that, getting good Republicans elected. And I understand your frustration, because I'm just as frustrated with that, which is why I got involved in on this local level anyway. But voting for Republicans with your values is more important than just voting for someone with an R behind their name. So, if you need me afterwards, I'll be here. Or and one other thing, actually. I was happy that Greg was here. Greg was one of the 4 or 5 people that we got elected to school board the last time we ran this project 4 years ago. So that's pretty exciting. Are you running for re-election? All right. Central? Right? So if you want to talk to him about the process, I know he'd love to talk to you, and I really encourage you guys to run. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. Just these notepads back there that he talked about, they're actually one of our committee members, Rick Keller. He's a Glenn Beck real estate agent that he can trust. So, and those are the notepads back there. So go get one.
You're coming over? All right, and she'll come over as well, over to the meeting room. You can just go straight through those doors. It'll go straight back. We'll lead the way. We'll do this as quick as we can to get names and get people connected with other people. Thank you.